thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah, good morning, you guys. It is Monday, March 16th, and today is National Curl Crush Day today, you guys.
No. I don't know what the hell that means, but all right, cool.
It's for, it's people that have crushes on girls with curly hair.
Oh, I have curly hair naturally, so if you have a crush on me, happy Curl Crush Day.
You have naturally curly hair. Yeah, I bet, Jenny.
I do. That's what happens when you're mixed, Jason.
Yeah. Everyone has curly hair, or everyone has a crush on her?
I mean, I'm not buying the.
I know that Michael does not have curly hair, so maybe that answers the question.
Well, everyone has curly hair somewhere, Gary.
I have curly hair.
Well, Gary.
That doesn't mean they're not mutually exclusive. You know what I'm saying?
They're not. Jason just likes to shit on people when he's not part of it.
Well, Gary, everyone has curly hair somewhere, Gary.
Jason, don't be vulgar in the morning show.
I think.
What's that, Gary? You all right, Gary?
You know what else today is, Jason?
Today is National Panda Day, Jenny Beth.
I don't hear Jason. Do you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, you might have to
drop out and come back.
Yeah,
Gary.
you might have to drop out and come back, Gary.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah.
You hear me though, right?
I do. Yep. Let him know I hear him.
We can hear you. It's also 3/16 day for Stone Cold Steve Austin.
It is.
Wow.
It is everyone's favorite Bible verse day. That's right. 3/16. You are very right about that, Jenny Beth.
For God so loved the world, but also Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Are you saying that God loves Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Everybody loves Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay.
Yeah. Source loves everybody too. So.
Oh, whoa. It's also National Artichoke Hearts Day today.
Okay. You know what? I might celebrate.
I'm down with that.
Not for you.
Easy there. It's National Freedom of Information Day.
Oh, release Epstein files, all of them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
release everything.
Yeah. Why not? You know what I mean? I mean, ultimately, someone's going to hack it and they're going to release it anyway. So, at least if you release it, you'll be you can be able to say that you're the first one to do it.
If you listened, I just need to quit playing with me and go ahead and drop all of that. What other day is it, Jason, or is it time for you to start the show?
Oh, well, it is probably one of my favorite days of the year, and I think this is definitely my day, Jenny Beth.
Oh, National Butthead Day?
National Everything You Do Is Right Day.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
nice. Yeah.
Well, that must be hard, Jason. I mean,
I'm just going to put some JMO in my coffee.
It is hard, Gary. It is hard. It takes a lot of critical decision making. A lot of internal debate. You know what I mean? But ultimately,
what it really takes, Jason, is a lot of tolerance because everyone's jealous of you, and you just have to accept that and you deal with it, right?
You know, I view it, Gary. It's occupational hazard. It just is what it is, and you know, I've come to accept that over the years. And you know, haters are gonna hate because that's what haters do.
The only hazard you have is your head inflating too much and you floating off into the atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely not worried about that. But thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website, www.high9news.com. So thank you to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And you guys, a Vermont Senate committee approves a bill to cut marijuana tax and double purchase limits and allow events and deliveries. This might be one of the most sensible bills I've heard in a long time. A Vermont Senate committee has unanimously approved a bill that would make changes to the state's marijuana laws, including reducing the excise tax, expanding possession and purchase limits, and allowing cannabis events and deliveries. The Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs voted 5-0 to send Senate Bill 278 to the full Senate after adopting a revised version of the proposal. The bill was originally filed by a bipartisan group of lawmakers as a measure to expand cannabis sales and make Vermont's regulated market more competitive. Under the amended version, the bill would cut Vermont's marijuana excise tax from 14% to 10%, and it would also double the retail transaction and personal possession limits, allowing adults 21 and older to buy and possess up to 2 ounces of cannabis or its equivalent in a single sale. It would also increase the legal possession limit of cannabis concentrates from 5 grams to 10 grams. And another notable change in the amended bill is a higher THC cap for cannabis products, and the proposal would increase the limit for a single package from 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams of THC. The measure would also create new event and delivery permits through a more limited way than the original version may have suggested. And the committee amended the bill before giving it the approval, and the Cannabis Control Board would be allowed to issue up to 10 public event permits and 10 private event permits per year, with each permit valid for a single event lasting no more than 24 hours. The bill would also authorize up to 15 delivery permits for Tier 1 cultivators and Tier 1 manufacturers, and both the event and delivery permit sections would be repealed on July 1st, 2028, making them temporary pilot-style programs unless lawmakers act again. The amended bill would also prevent municipalities from using ordinances or bylaws to completely prohibit cannabis establishments, although it does not appear to include the earlier concept of requiring local votes in municipalities that have not yet considered whether to allow retailers. If approved by the full Senate and later enacted into law, most of the bill's provisions would take effect on July 1st, 2026. Well, look at that. Congratulations, Vermont. You guys might get some lower excise tax right in time for the 4th of July, and you guys can have a real fireworks show. What do y'all have to say about this?
I mean, it's nice that somebody's realizing that to sustain their market, they actually need to give operators, a little bit of breathing room on the taxes. So,
yeah.
Shout out to Vermont. That's amazing. I doubt that it's going to translate into lower prices for the consumer because, we wouldn't do that. But
I think it will.
I don't think it will, Jason.
I think it will.
No, people are looking at their project. They're looking at their P&Ls and they're like, oh, we're going to have some breathing room here for us. They're not going to drop prices.
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see.
We don't see.
Time will tell, but think about this, but you're going to be able to buy 200 milligrams per package instead of 100 milligrams per package. All those environmentalists will probably appreciate that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it because dosages need to be something that's sustainable for patients. So if you need more than 100 milligrams, it might be nice to be able to buy that. But Jason, if it was you and you saw that you were going to make more money for your shop or you could drop the prices, would you drop the prices?
I'd drop the prices because I would get more money.
You're a liar.
Stop it.
You're a liar.
No, I'm not.
You're a liar. The 2 gram 50 sack guy is not dropping prices.
It was 2.5 grams for 50 back in the day, so don't get it twisted, Jenny Beth.
Right.
Why are you trying to short people?
That's what I'm looking at you for, buddy.
Yeah, I think the prices will, it'll fluctuate, and depending on whether or not they operate operators and supply will probably depend on the demand that's there. But I can say, being pretty intimate with Vermont in that area, there was never a hard time getting pretty quality cannabis products from Vermont.
I mean, it is the Green Mountain State after all, Michael.
Yes. Yes.
How is Vermont in bed, Michael? Since you guys are into
Beautiful. Yeah. It's dark nights, so you can sleep well. You don't have to worry.
You actually can see all the stars up there in Vermont.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Vermont. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But so, growing up in New Hampshire, Vermont was the place that we always found the high quality.
Mm-hmm.
So,
any thoughts on this, Gary?
Well, couple. One, it's good to see a state going in the right direction versus the other direction that we're seeing but also as the chief compliance officer for the highest grossing dispensary in the state of Vermont, I'm very happy to hear this. And I think the cynicism of some on this board about whether we should care about our customers and whether we will share the love is outrageous.
See, exactly.
Hey, Gary, I hear you. I just also, as the chief compliance officer for a lot of facilities, have seen what people do when they get a little bit of margin and some breathing room after not having it. But I hope it does pass down to the consumer.
I hope so.
It's a great market. We happen to have a store right in White River Junction, which is about as good a location as you can have because most people have to go through there to get. And it's right over the border from New Hampshire, and we're actually getting a producer license as well. So
nice.
It's the state is doing well.
Congratulations, Gary.
Shout out Vermont.
Yeah, shout out to White River Junction. You know what I'm saying? I know exactly where that is.
The Tea House is the name if anybody's going through there.
The Tea House in White River Junction.
Quick little plug. Jason's going to send you an invoice for that podcast for the show.
This story has been brought to you by the Tea House because Jenny loves to sip on tea when she's in White River Junction. And on that, we're going to roll into our first commercial, and we are going to be right back.
As bad as Democrats,
the backstabbing rhino Republicans.
President Trump has fought and delivered, but liberal young Kim is a Trump hater. Kim voted to censure President.
I'm not running for the party of Trump.
Republicans proudly stand with President Trump, but not Trump-hating liberal young Kim. Americans for Security is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I would totally would. I 100% would. I can't believe you would say that about me, Jenny Beth. That's so rude.
How dare you, Gary?
And well, you guys, I have some more good news, I think, because there was a study that says high volume medical marijuana dispensaries linked to lower rates of larceny and motor vehicle theft. A new study published in the journal Regional Science and Urban Economics found that medical cannabis dispensaries in Florida were associated with lower rates of some property crimes, but the effect depended heavily on how busy the dispensaries were and how much foot traffic already existed in the surrounding area. Researchers from the University of Texas at El Paso examined dispensary locations across Florida over a 3-year period, matching exact storefront addresses with city block level crime data. To better understand how dispensaries may influence nearby crime, the study also incorporated smartphone geopositional data to estimate customer volume and neighborhood foot traffic. According to the study, the opening of high-volume dispensaries was followed by reductions in larceny, vehicle burglary, and motor vehicle theft. The researchers say these declines were not seen across the board, and however, near low-volume dispensaries, they found no similar different effect. In some lower traffic areas, the opening of those dispensaries was instead associated with increases in larceny and motor vehicle theft. Interesting. The study used not yet open dispensary locations as a control group and applied a different indifference model to compare changes over time. Because Florida requires broadly standardized security measures for dispensaries under state law, the researchers were able to focus more closely on differences tied to consumer activity and surrounding neighborhood conditions. The findings add nuance to the ongoing debate over how cannabis dispensaries affect public safety, and rather than showing a single statewide pattern, the study indicates that the impact can vary depending on the level of activity at a dispensary and the amount of regular foot traffic in the area. Researchers say that suggests neighborhood dynamics, particularly pedestrian activity, play a key role in whether a dispensary is linked to lower crime or a rise in certain offenses. Interesting. It sounds like this study can't figure out which way it wants to go. But ultimately, I think that when you have security guards standing outside, you generally are going to have lower traffic or lower crime. But I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
I mean, that's the thought that I had. However, the study makes sense for that, right? Because if the security guard's at a low volume dispensary, they got more time to look around. If they're busy checking people in and watching tons of people come in and out, seems like, they might be a little more distracted. So this study, it sounds like a nothing burger.
But they said that the businesses with more traffic had lower crime, and the businesses with less traffic had higher crime.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why it doesn't make any sense. So this is a big old nothing burger.
I don't know. I think it's a very interesting study.
Unless the low volume places are just in like the hood.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
That's my guess. They didn't discuss like what the traditional crime rates were prior to a dispensary ever being there. That's what.
Shout out to traditional crime.
So, I got a couple of cents on this one. I
Go for it.
Did some research back in the day when I was running the legalization campaigns here in Florida, related to that, because there were studies throughout the whole country, 10 years ago. I feel like I haven't seen one in a long time, related to these types of crimes around dispensary areas. And it had always been pretty consistent that at least seemingly, that property theft crimes, violent crimes within those areas was reduced. So we did here in Florida at some point, and this was early on in our medical marijuana program, sent out a bunch of public records requests to cities and agencies throughout the state on it. And we had requested a 6-month gap before and 6 months after dispensaries opening in that area. And it was literally, early on in the time. So we did see, not huge numbers because it was such a small sample size, but definitely a reduction in the small sample size that we did, seemingly of those types of crimes after the dispensaries were open. So I think it's very interesting, and I do think that this is something that has some value. Anywhere you have security and people on the street that are kind of protecting people, I think, you're going to potentially prevent, bad elements within that area. And that's why really, I think cops should be back out on the beat, instead of screwing people.
Fair enough. Any thoughts on this, Gary? This crime wave in Florida?
A couple things. I mean, when you hear things like this, you always have to question whether there is even a correlation. I mean, you could take any amount of activity and try to make sense of it. I mean, given that Florida is being talked about, my thought on Florida is there's more dispensaries in Florida than probably most states, maybe than other than like California. And many of them are pretty dormant. So nothing's really going on. So why would anybody want to go in there and commit crime is what I would say. So it's an argument as to why there may not be a huge correlation. I don't see the good, or, I don't see, what are you saying? People are getting more stoned, so they're not committing crimes. I don't know. I'm not sure it's a meaningful study.
Well, a lot of times that, a lot of the neighborhood complaints will be, oh, you know what, when we bring these types of businesses into our communities, there's an uptick in crime, and they bring an undesirable element into our communities, and yada, yada, yada. And so that's often a neighborhood talking point that a lot of the Karens like to say at different public hearing meetings prior to a dispensary's opening.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. If that's the argument, then that's a ridiculously stupid argument. So you could support it with a stupid correlation.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, on that, we're going to roll right into Mr. Michael Minardi. Michael is a lawyer out of the great red state of Florida who helps cannabis activists, patients, and businesses from both hemp and cannabis navigate the complex legal structure and always stay out of jail. It is none other Mr. Michael Minardi.
Good morning to everyone on the West Coast and
Yeah.
happy high noon on the East Coast. So Texas could see a spike in raids on hemp businesses under new rules, industry advocates fear. I did pick this article because we do have a major case coming up on March 27th trying to challenge all the Daubert testing of hemp products.
Wow.
And trying to throw out all the roadside testing in the state because it's a complete scam and cops are lying through their teeth. So, Dallas attorney Chelsea Spencer specializes in making sure Texas that sell hemp-derived THC products know how to stay compliant with state law and federal regulations. An area that can be very confusing, she offers them a monthly service where a law firm vigorously vets distributors and helps to independently test their products. They pay us a phenomenal amount to stay compliant, Spencer said. That is why when Spencer learned of one of her Texas clients had been raided by local police and DEA and his home surrounded like he was a major narcotics dealer, she was shocked. They took everything from my client, his children's cell phone, everyone's computer in the house, took all vehicles, seized all assets, and froze all cash, Spencer said of the raid that occurred in July. Since August 2024, local and federal law enforcement agencies have raided more than 15 businesses across the state were accused of selling consumable hemp products that had illegal levels of THC, according to attorneys for the cannabis retailers. During these raids, law enforcement officials seized product and cash that businesses have still not recovered, and customers were scared away. Many of those retailers have not yet been found guilty of a crime, according to the attorneys. You always see the headlines about the raids, but you never see these huge headlines about charges and indictments, said Andrea Steele, a Houston attorney for several THC businesses. Even though they have affected a small fraction of 8,000 hemp retailers registered in Texas, these raids by law enforcement agencies have ramped up over the last 2 years to help some lawmakers build public support for banning hemp THC products, Steele said. You can support cops illegally targeting companies because they don't know what's going on and create support for banning these beverages because they're not doing anything wrong. Over the summer, Governor Robert Abbott vetoed a bill that legislature passed to ban hemp-derived THC and told state agencies to regulate those THCs instead. But she said her clients fear these types of raids will continue because the new regulations being considered could create THC limits that will be nearly impossible to meet, shuttering THC businesses and deterring businesses from selling THC products. The number of raids are occurring after the veto as before. In fact, there will likely be an increase in raids once the new rules and regulations finalize, because one of them is an increase in the licensing fees for enforcement. They're going to need to justify that, she said. Law enforcement agencies deny that these raids were politically motivated. They have said that these raids were based on concerns that these retailers are selling dangerous products, especially to children, and engaging in other unscrupulous activities such as money laundering, according to a news conference from Allen Police, as well as a joint one between Temple and Belton Police Department. Allen Police Chief Steve Dyes, whose department raided at least a dozen businesses and warehouses since 24, was a fixture of the Texas Capitol Legislature, warning lawmakers that hemp industry would corrupt and couldn't be trusted. You have to have a trustworthy industry partner to know when they put something in a package, it matches the label. We just don't have that with THC consumable industry. Dye said in September after Abbott vetoed the hemp ban and made an executive order for rules and regulations. Sammy Riapamonte, spokesman for the Allen Police Department, said the investigation associated with the raid is still ongoing and couldn't provide further details. Dye did not respond to a request for comment. The Temple Police Department does not conduct enforcement actions based on political developments or media alternatives, said Sidney McBride, spokesman for the Temple Police Department, which raided 7 businesses in June. Our operations are driven by facts, evidence, and applicable law. Our focus remains to work in partnership with the community to prevent, reduce, and solve crimes. Multiple retailers have sued law enforcement agencies after these raids. Yes, alleging they are using a faulty testing method in their crime labs that artificially inflates the amount of THC in their products. Law enforcement agencies had defended their results. Data provided from the current Texas Patrol Network, Poison Control, confirmed an increase in cannabis-related calls starting in 2019, a year after hemp-derived THC was legalized by the federal government, from 923 to a 10-year high of 2,592 in 2024. Although those calls dropped last year to 1,485, the majority of those calls involved suspected poisoning of children under the age of 5 and teenagers. So we know how they're getting those. The Texas Department of State Health Services recently published a set of proposed rules to tighten regulations on consumable hemp products, including new testing requirements that industry members say will eliminate the use of hemp flower, which is used in many THC products. Hemp businesses worry that this new requirement will be used to another reason to raid them. That, coupled with a proposal to hike licensing fees by more than 13,000%, will force many of them out of business. It keeps on going on about this being tied up in court, and that the DEA department in Dallas told that law enforcement agencies are still investigating their case and against other businesses in 2024 in July raids, and no charges have been filed yet. Testing and waiting, 7 vape and smoke shops were raided in June with products that they were labeled, falsely labeled. Documents providing the police department state that the multi-agency investigation into these shops involved purchasing and testing items from these stores where fraud products such as joints tested above the legal THC limit. So that's what's going on out there. This is going to be very interesting. This is something that's happening in Florida. And so people know this is going on, is especially, I guarantee this is happening with THCA products. And I will say all the testing companies that I have seen out there, Detectachem, NarQ, all of them, what they do is they test a ratio of THC to CBD. And what they do is that they combine, it doesn't just separate Delta-9 THC from those test results. So if it has any THC in it, that's going to test positive if it's over the CBD amount. So, law enforcement really, unfortunately, I think is lying throughout the country on what test results do. They're establishing it and using it for probable cause to make arrests of people, seizure of vehicles. And I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks we prove that these should not be used by law enforcement to determine whether or not something is a hemp product or a cannabis product.
I think the scariest part for me is with law enforcement, not even that they're necessarily like immediately lying, it's that with all the other laws, they're not trained and they don't understand the laws that they're tasked with enforcing, and so they just pull something out of their butt.
You got it. 1,000%.
That's exactly what it does sound like. Yeah, these guys don't have a clue as to the type of products that they actually should be going after, and they're just lumping everything as, hey, you know what? If it looks like cannabis, it must be cannabis, and delivering a lot of false positives, as I would say, Michael.
Well,
Wow,
yeah, it's crazy, and I do expect it to continue to happen more and more across the country. Mm-hmm. And it's very, from my perspective, especially the THCA issue, I really think unless a state bans it with what the feds just did and kicking it and clearly only accepting the formula until after November 26, and Florida legislature specifically, denying to adopt the formula. And if people don't know what I'm talking about, the formula is the THCA times 0.877 plus Delta-9 to get your total Delta-9 concentration to be a legal product. Mm-hmm. That there's no way that they should be criminalizing or banning THCA products in those states that, otherwise don't have a state legislature that's banned it. These are federal legal products.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. But I think we're just going to continue to see more and more of this as there's just, let's just call it a lot of confusion on law enforcement and a lack of wanting to actually educate themselves on what is real and what isn't real, because it's easier for them to just go in and just take things and whatnot, because there's not really a lot of accountability. And I haven't really seen a lot of people pushing back legally as filing different types of lawsuits against law enforcement for, damage of their business, seizure of property that's federally legal and whatnot. And so, until those types of things happen, the police are going to keep on maintaining this same status quo.
I mean, I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in California for licensed cannabis, right? And they got it back 3 years later. But 3 years later, what'd you get back? You got a bunch of biomass that you might as well throw outside.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly
so,
right.
And there's also a fear when you go against the police, because nobody wants to go against the people who can bother you every time you get in your car and pull you over and make your life hell.
Fear, it's the most powerful emotion. And on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Rescheduling cannabis, which was classified as more dangerous than fentanyl. Trump's action will destroy the cartel's illicit black market, expand medical research, and ensure seniors and veterans safely receive the care they need. Thank President Trump for delivering on another America First promise.
And we're back. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. And YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed to the channel. And all of our articles are available to read directly on our website, www.high9news.com. And please make sure that you are following us on X and Rumble, as those are the two most stable platforms on the metaverse.
Under President Trump, America is back. Trump's delivered the largest tax cut in history, putting more money in our pockets and restored America's economic dominance. Promises made, promises kept. Now it's time to fulfill another promise from President Trump and reschedule cannabis, which supports over 400,000 jobs and creates billions of dollars in economic growth. Reschedule cannabis and stack another win, Mr. President. America First Agriculture Action Inc. is responsible for the contents of this advertising.
And we are back, and we are going to roll right in to Mr. Gary Kaminsky. And Gary is a regulatory compliance attorney with over 39 years of experience working in highly regulated industries. For the past 10 years, Gary has focused his practice on the cannabis and marijuana and hemp space, advising public multi-state operators, hemp beverage manufacturers, and other participants in the cannabis supply chain. And prior to that, Gary was an SEC enforcement attorney, in-house counsel for proprietary trading firms, broker-dealers, and a principal at several hedge funds. And Gary's expertise is in developing, implementing, and maintaining regulatory enterprise risk management systems to mitigate lapses that can cause disruption to clients' businesses. It is none other the commissioner himself, Mr. Gary Kaminsky.
Today's piece is from a friend of mine, Sean Collins, who used to be the head of Massachusetts marijuana regulator. It's called The Wrong Enemy, and it's about a topic near and dear to my heart: hemp beverages. Numbers tell the story. In Q1 2025, beverages accounted for about 1% of total cannabis dispensary sales by dollar volume, roughly $54 million for the quarter, according to BDSA. This was supposed to be the bridge product, the format that could bring social drinkers, alcohol-curious adults, and lighter-use consumers into the licensed market. The category has grown, but inside the dispensary system, it is still growing from a base so small it barely registers on the shelf. Now consider what John Helper, chief executive of Top 10 Liquors in Minnesota, told Reuters. Hemp-derived THC beverages represent 15% of his business, 15% in a liquor store. The product did not change, the channel did. That gap is a structural signal, and the alcohol industry is already reading it. Not as a unified block, though, as a set of competing commercial interests that have reached genuinely different conclusions about what it means. The cannabis industry should be reading it the same way. The producer groups landed on restriction. The Distilled Spirits Council said in April 15th, 2025 updated policies that intoxicating hemp should face the same regulations, taxation, and retail rules as marijuana, and opposed to selling hemp beverages alongside alcohol at retail. The Beer Institute took a similar position in its November 12th, 2024 guiding principles. The core of that argument is legitimate. Alcohol producers built their businesses inside a compliance architecture governing distribution, taxation, labeling, and retail placement. Hemp beverages entered through the definitional gap created by the 2018 Farm Bill, and in many cases operated entirely outside that system. The asymmetry is real. The whole tier went the other direction. The Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, on the other hand, urged Congress to regulate hemp beverage through a framework modeled on the existing alcohol system rather than prohibit them. On November 5th, 2025, Beer, Wine, and Spirits Wholesalers wrote to congressional leadership arguing that hemp products had created jobs, driven new investment, and helped absorb declining alcohol demand. WSWA separately pressed senators on November 10th, 2025 to support the Paul Amendment, striking Section 781 from the AGRA-FDA Appropriations Bill. In January 2026, Total Wine and More, BevMo, ABC Wine and Spirits, and Specs Wine and Spirits followed by launching the Beverage Alcohol Merchants Coalition, calling on Congress to delay the ban and replace it with a three-tier regulatory framework. Their spokesman said it simply, "We know how to sell regulated products. We do it every day." The reason is not complicated. Low-dose THC beverages fit the existing cold chain without modification. Same trucks, same warehouses, same coolers. For a distribution tier watching alcohol volume contract, this category does not arrive as a policy puzzle. It arrives as a margin opportunity inside infrastructure they already own. Wholesalers are not making a normalization argument. They are reading reorder velocity. When the largest independent alcohol retailer in the country forms a coalition to fight for a product's place in the market, that is the biggest buyer in the room casting a vote. The dispensary was the right solution to the problem legalization was trying to solve. Controlled access for a product emerging from prohibition built from scratch without any federal framework to lean on. That system works well for what it was designed to do. Beverage consumers are not using it. I have sat in enough of these rooms to know that observation lands differently depending on which side of the table you're on. It shouldn't. The market is showing something real. Chris Lackner, founder and president of the Hemp Beverage Alliance, said it directly in UNLV's 2024 report, a review of the current THC beverage market. Low-dose products struggle in dispensaries, but normalize quickly where other adult beverages are sold. The UNLV review reached the same conclusion from market data. Beverages has reached the social and occasion-based consumption context that alcohol has always owned, and that dispensary model was not built to compete for. Jessica Kruger, Nicholas Felicione, and Daniel Kruger reported in the Journal of Psychoactive Drugs that cannabis beverage users described their weekly alcohol consumptions falling from 7.02 drinks before adoption to 3.35 afterward, with 58.6% reporting direct substitution. Brightfield Group's June 10th, 2025 market update found that 46% of THC drink consumers who also use alcohol say the products lead them to reduce their intake. Meaningful overlap exists between hemp beverage users and traditional cannabis users, which complicates any clean new audience story. The channel finds hold regardless, beverages capturing occasions the dispensary was never designed to serve. It's a very long article. I think that the end of it talks about how none of the positions currently on the table constitute a governance framework. The major alcohol producer groups want hemp regulated out of their channel. Wholesalers want it regulated in. Cannabis operators want parity. Congress has to draw a line that may not hold, which each reflects, well, they've drawn a line that may not hold. Each reflects a commercial or political interest, and none of them adds up to a system. People who actually move product have already decided this category belongs in the market. They are building around it. The cannabis industry has more in common with these people than anyone currently trying to litigate hemp out of existence, and it would do well to start acting like it. Show up. It's a very good rendition of what is actually going on and what has happened. I mean, it's clear that low-dose beverages are a choice that consumers are making. And when you see Total Wine and More, when you see Sprouts, when you see Target, when you see Fresh Market and Milam's here in Florida, and a lot of other mainstream retailers opening up THC-infused beverage sections in completely relatively unregulated means, other than when you're checking out at the register, you have to show that you're 21. It's being proliferated in a positive way. What you have is a supply chain that's working. That's interstate commerce, that is an intoxicating beverage that is being regulated similar to other intoxicants in a way that's safe. Yet, on November 12th, 2026, should nothing change, that will be completely made illegal, which will then eliminate a multi-billion-dollar industry and force it into a failed model of marijuana regulation that in which people are not buying the product in a dispensary because that is not a low-dose environment. So the key to this story, which we hope Congress will understand, although it's unlikely, is that the three-tier system for alcohol beverage is already there. And throwing a intoxicating product into that system is the most logical solution, as opposed to prohibiting it and banning it. In terms of, that takes care of age gating, that takes care of a lot of other issues. It does not necessarily take care of regulating how the product is made, and that can be done relatively simply, and the way it's tested. However, those are complexities for this Congress that can't even allow TSA to be open when we're in a war and terrorists surround us, is something that it's hard to be optimistic is going to happen. The other thing that's worth noting is that the THC infused beverage industry, low dose primarily, is considering and is actually separating itself out from the other hemp-derived products, most importantly THCA flower and other high dose, because it is not likely that those products will survive in the next 5 months. And low beverages may. But apropos of the last article, what you're going to see is a complete shit show nationwide, because there is no real allocation of resources for enforcement. And enforcement is complex, as we just went over, because they don't, the people who enforce it, whether it be the Texas Rangers or the police or the Department of Health in Florida, do not really understand what they're doing. And in many times their laws are not even clear that they're looking at, yet they're being told to enforce. That's a recipe for not only disaster, but unfortunate consequences for businesses. That's me.
Bevy, 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 all the bevies. Well, you know, this is very, very interesting, because as you point, the fight isn't against cannabis beverages versus alcohol. It is who is going to be the ultimate distributor of these beverages, Gary. This changes a lot of the calculus, I think, that a lot of people are putting in regards with how they want to get their beverages and manufacture their beverages.
I mean, it's true. I mean, the distributors and the retailers want it. The brands, the alcohol suppliers do not, because they're not making the product, and it's competing with products that they are making.
Yeah.
So that has created an even more complexity up in Washington, because now you've got, even within the alcohol beverage lobby, two separate messages, similar to the hemp marijuana in the cannabis industry, which is confusing regulators and legislators and giving them an out, frankly, to say, until you guys figure it out, we're not going to deal with it.
Yep. Fair enough. Jenny Beth, I know you love your cannabis bevies.
No, Jason, I just hold them for you.
You just hold them for me? That's cute. That's
Yeah,
cute.
no.
That's cute.
Yeah.
That's cute. Well,
So, I'll say it was great. Where was it? I had a reggae rise up in Tampa, St. Pete this weekend, and it was one of the first major public events like that I saw. They had a THC beverage area. So they had a few of the different brands there, and they were, giving taste tests, non-infused taste tests, and then you could, purchase. They were all 5 milligrams, but I thought it was great. At least that it was out there, it was exposed. They had ID check spot where you go in, kind of like we're going into a bar. So you expand, and then you can go in and purchase THC beverages. But I thought it was great, to see it come mainstream at an event like that. Obviously, reggae rise up, it fits, but it was great, and it was busy in there. So every time we were in there, there's a good amount of crowd in there getting their drink. So.
Well, I just think that these retailers, I think that they would be more assistance in these lobbying efforts, like these Total Wine and Spirits and Target and whatnot, Circle K. I expect them to show up and start putting some real money if they really want to be retailers for these beverages. They need to start ponying up some cash. But that's my overall thought on it.
I think they just really need to get on distribution levels and open it up, because everyone can have it. Look at Circle K's going to have them, right? I know they're going to have, I guess, the some of the rhythm drinks, right, from Rise or Green Thumb, right, in Circle K's. So we know that Target's going to be carrying these types of things. So I think, as Gary was saying, just get rid of the stigma. It's 21 plus, show an ID, and be done with it.
Well, I think what these strictly alcoholic only beverage manufacturers need to start to create their own hemp derived cannabis beverages, and then that way they could feel like they could compete. And I think that is kind of the easy fix all, end all, be all to this whole situation, because I don't think the cannabis beverage market is really going anywhere. I still don't buy that it's as big as they want to try to prop it up to be and whatnot, but nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. I still don't think that it's going to go anywhere. People have invested way too much money into it for it to go anywhere. And on that, we are going to go somewhere into our final commercial, and we are going to be right back.
As bad as Democrats,
The backstabbing rhino Republicans.
President Trump has fought and delivered, but liberal young Kim is a Trump hater. Kim voted to censure President Trump, but voted against censoring Adam Schiff.
I don't work for President Trump. I will oppose him in the strongest terms. I'm not running for the party of Trump.
Republicans proudly stand with President Trump, but not Trump-hating liberal young Kim. Americans for Security is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Gonna roll right into Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Justice Served, a 501c3 that helps justice-impaired individuals get their lives back on track after they've been victims of the track. It is America's sweetheart, Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
All right. Whew. I don't know what's going on with the audio, but I'm hearing some craziness right now. All right. So let's go to Tennessee, Jason.
Yes.
Tennessee Republicans admit cannabis reform is needed, but kill a home grow bill. Boo. In Tennessee, some Republican lawmakers are acknowledging that the state's cannabis laws may need reform, but they're still not ready to allow residents to grow their own marijuana. A proposal known as the Freedom to Farm Act would have allowed adults 21 and older to grow cannabis at home for personal use with a registration system overseen by the state's Department of Agriculture. Under the plan, households could have cultivated up to 15 plants, which is awesome. That's the most anywhere. Despite growing discussion around cannabis reform in the state, the bill failed to advance out of committee. Some lawmakers have said broader changes to cannabis policy may eventually come, particularly around medical marijuana. But home cultivation remains a step too far from any Republican-controlled legislation. So while Tennessee lawmakers are increasingly admitting the state's cannabis laws may need updating, allowing residents to grow their own plants is not happening anytime soon. So this is boo. They had a chance to pass something that would have been really awesome and great for access for patients. They chose not to. So boo, and we'll give people in the comments something to complain about because it's unfortunately Republicans.
Man, Tennessee. I mean, did you really expect anything less coming out of Tennessee? No. I mean, I didn't. I didn't necessarily expect anything less out of Tennessee, you know. But people.
Well, I'm the only 10 I see this morning, so.
Oh, that's cute. That's very cute, Jenny Beth. That's very, very, very wordsmithy of you right there. Man, you know, this is home grow. It's something I just don't understand why people want to be against home grow so much. It's really just doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's very prohibitionist type of mindset. It definitely, you know, these Republicans that are against these types of things, I think they need to go back to the drawing board, because it's all about freedom and liberty. And if you're prohibiting people from growing a plant at their house, that's not very freedom and liberty-ish to me. But any thoughts on this, Michael or Gary?
I mean, I think that, you know, the politics of all of these states govern, and Tennessee is a very strong hemp state. I'm sure that plays into it, but you know, it's so in flux, pending what happens to the farm bill prohibition, or whatever we're calling that, across this country, particularly in states like Tennessee that are not currently marijuana states. I think it'll shake out one way or the other.
Interesting. Any final thoughts on this, Michael, before we move on?
Yeah, I think we know how I feel about home cultivation. I think it's ridiculous. Continue, you know, just oppression on people for a plant, and it's just ridiculous. And, you know, we have so many issues to worry about in this world. This is not one of them.
Exactly. Fair enough. Well, I have one final story for you guys to wrap the show up with, and this is gonna, you know, take you so high, maybe even make you part of the Mile High Club, because marijuana.
The biggest rear end on the show, the highest Republican, Jason Beck.
Thank you, Jenny Beth. Thank you very much. But cannabis reclassification may impact drug testing for private pilots. That's right. The Trump administration is moving to reclassify cannabis, a shift that could have implications for workplaces across the country. And when it comes to airplane pilots, aviation experts said strict testing remains key to keeping the skies safe. Several private jets were parked inside an aircraft hangar used by Will Smith Aviation on Thursday evening. The charter company operates flights throughout the Southeast, Bahamas, and Grand Cayman Islands. Terry Henry, chief financial officer for Will Smith Aviation, said safety is critical when operating an airplane. It's such a high stress and high dynamic environment. It would immediately be picked up by anyone else. On December 18, 2025, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order directing the Department of Justice and the Drug Enforcement Administration to begin the process of reclassifying cannabis. The proposal would move cannabis from a Schedule 1 federally illegal drug to a less restrictive Schedule 3 drug that can be prescribed. The Federal Aviation Administration currently requires mandatory drug and alcohol testing for pilots, and Henry said Will Smith Aviation does initial higher testing, probable cause testing, and random testing. And inside the cockpit while up in the air, Henry said there's little room for error, and it's why his aircraft management company has zero tolerance when it comes to testing positive for banned substances. If it's determined to be positive, our pilots has no choice but to lose their job. They won't just lose their job with us, they would lose their job from flying. Will Smith Aviation works with Tampa-based USA Mobile Drug Testing Administrator Urine Drug Screens, and CEO David Bell said federal rules require testing for workers in safety-sensitive transportation jobs. Everybody regulated by the Department of Transportation, including airline pilots and truck drivers, are tested for marijuana. Bell said the shift from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 could create a temporary gray area while federal agencies upgrade their testing policies. What do we do for that year period when the DEA is saying it's a Schedule 3? Employers will say they're not allowed to test because the policy doesn't allow Schedule III drugs to be tested. And even if cannabis is reclassified, many companies may choose to keep their own drug testing policies in place for pilots, they say. But time will tell, and could you be flying high in the friendly skies sometime soon under a Schedule III regime? Only time will tell, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
I guess if I'm understanding it, I'm not sure that rescheduling is going to have much of an impact. I mean, right now you can't fly if you have a certain level of alcohol in your system, I assume. So if you're intoxicated, and that's I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I'm not sure it's justified that you should be able to smoke pot and fly an airplane.
Well, I think what they're actually saying, Gary, is that because there's a rules and regulations and mandate to test for Schedule I drugs, but there's not a mandate or legislation on the books to test for Schedule III drugs, that until those codes and legislation is updated, that there could be a gap in between that time frame, because these people would not be required or possibly legally obligated to test for those substances.
In other words, they aren't necessarily stoned, but they have it in their system and they tested positive, so they lose their job. Yeah, no, I hear you. I think the Schedule III issue is in a quagmire.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel, the FDA obviously didn't make their deadline, and I spoke to them about why, but they still haven't, and they haven't done anything about it. That's just the start of it. Bondi hasn't done anything.
Yep.
I just don't see it moving forward in a time frame that issues like this are going to become, on the table. But they will eventually.
Yeah, they will. They will eventually. I agree with you, but I think a lot of it too is a lot of people want to create those different arguments, get their talking points in, create some propaganda around this, the fear mongering and everything, to try to steer, delay, have some type of input in how this rulemaking process goes in regards with how it's implemented. So I think that's really what a lot of this is more is about. It's all pole positioning.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this, Michael?
So, someone who's got an appeal right now in Second District Court of Appeal regarding employee rights. I think it really depends on the policy and the wording of the policy, and with cannabis, again, it becomes a really difficult situation because yes, I had a friend actually who was a pilot who got suspended for a little bit because he showed up, his breath was like a .02. Right. After a night of drinking, he worked the next morning, got up and was still blowing, and so he had to go get suspended and stuff. So, there becomes a situation with alcohol and, other drugs. It's within and out of your system within 72 hours. They may be a little bit under the influence. With cannabis, as we know, it stays in your system forever. So these, people, anytime they use it, let's never be able to use it. Mm-hmm. And typically drug place policies have the ability to justify, something in your system by legal use. Whether or not it be prescriptions. We're dealing with a nurse right now who's prescribed Adderall, and the temp agency is harassing her and sent her referral to the state because she tested positive for Adderall. And she's like, well, here's my prescription. I'm allowed to have this. So, these types of things, cannabis has to be considered like alcohol. It should be considered like a prescription drug, so that when people do provide this proof of evidence that they used it legally, it shouldn't destroy their livelihood. Mm-hmm. And that's where we really have to get to.
Michael, it's interesting. You just highlighted a complex issue because you, on the one hand, talked about it's medical, it's similar to Adderall, and if you're using it that way, you should be able to do it. But unless you happen to be in a state like Florida, and the only way you can get it is through a medical card, and you have a medical card, people source adult use products, and And that is not, they can't, all they can prove is that it's legal, but that doesn't mean I'm allowed to do it.
Yep.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Oh, man.
Well, and the other thing that we don't really talk about is the hemp issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who uses any hemp product, I don't care if it says it's non-detectable or anything of that nature, in all likelihood is going to test positive. So, that is, again, a federally legal product that people can use and still test positive and still lose their jobs as a result of it. So I think we have both of those issues there.
Interesting. Well, time is going to tell, and we're going to see how these rules get played out, hopefully sooner than later. But I don't think we're going to see anything until October. I think it's going to be an October surprise, right in time for the midterms. That's when I think it is actually going to get kicked in. But who knows? I could be wrong. I doubt it. But, today is National, National Be Right Day today. You know what I'm saying? So
But that you've already made it clear, Jason, that every day is that day for you.
It is. You're right about that. But today is that day for everybody else, even the people that are wrong. You know what I mean? Yes, and on that, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst Cannabis for helping us keep the lights on over here, and thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. And thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. Thank you to Cloud Media partners Elias and Gabriel. They're somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.